Hi there, welcome to the Standard Podcast. And today we want to talk about the journey of restoration. The first episode, if you haven't checked that out, you can go check it out. Focused on the book of Ruth, chapter 1. And, we took a look at the journey of Ruth and also Naomi as well. They left Israel, Bethlehem to be precise, during famine. And, that was a problem. And then they went to Moab. And while they were there, Elimelech died, the husband died, and Ruth was there with her two sons. And after that tragedy came something, good in their lives because the two sons they got married. One married Oprah, the other married Ruth. And then again, tragedy struck because the two sons eventually died. And Naomi heard about the end of the Lord was upon the people back in Israel, and that there was no longer famine, and God had given his people bread, he has given them food. And as a result, she decided to go back. And so Ruth chapter 1 was mostly focused on that journey. And one key thing to note from there is that when it comes to truth, or when it comes to prophecy or promises, the truth always looks like a lie until its moment of manifestation. It might not look as if it will never find expression, but when God speaks, that's why the word of God says that once has it spoken, twice have I heard that all power belongs to God. That no matter what you're going through in your life, and you might look at your life and say, this does not look like restoration. For Naomi, it never looked like restoration for her with the journey she's went through. And so if you haven't watched the part one, the first episode of this restoration, I want you to go watch that. And so today the focus will be on episode 2, which will be focus on chapter 2 of the book of Ruth. And we're trusting God, so that we'll learn a lot from it, and this will be really like practical section, so that everyone will be blessed by it. And so from Ruth chapter 2 from verse 1, the Bible then says, and Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz, and that they had gotten back to Bethlehem. And the Bible recorded that they got back during the time of barley harvest. And I said in the last video that it was not a coincidence that they came during the barley harvest. That means God controls times and seasons. And when God leads us at different points of our lives, it is paramount, it is important for us to be led by God, especially in the season that God is leading us to. Because those seasons play crucial part in our lives. When it comes to a harvest season definitely is during planting season. A person has sown seeds and they're waiting for harvest to reap the reward of their effort, the reward of their labor. And so that God always doesn't just want us to sacrifice, but he also wants us to benefit from the labors that we have labored, and sometimes not just we, that others have labored as well, so that we all enter into the rest. Because the goal is that those that planted the seed and those that have harvest will be full of joy at the end of the day. Because at times some people are able to plant the seed but not really harvest in their own lifetime. So that means bringing this home, it might be in a family where as parents, or maybe your grandparents, they made certain sacrifices that you are now enjoying in your own lifetime. Some of it might be for them to relocate to another part of the world, to to pursue their career, to give you to have resources, to know God and introduce you to God. And with that, and there are probably certain battles, spiritual battles that they fought, so that you won't have to go through those fundamental things, that they've broken certain generational curses and patterns that might want to stop you or prevent you from becoming all that God wants you to become. And so that at the end of the day, that the goal is that there should be manifestation of that which God has said. And that's why the Bible also spoke in the book of Hebrews 11, talking about the result of faith, that most of these people, they did not receive the promise itself. but that they knew, they saw it with their spiritual eyes. They heard it and they had faith. And so in this world, they had faith. While they were living, they lived by faith as well, trusting God and foreseeing the salvation of the Lord and foreseeing the miracle that the Lord will bring to them. And so there are times you lay the foundation, but you might not be the one that will build on top of it. We see this example in scriptures. David wanted to build the temple for God, and God said, "No, David, you fought so many battles, your hands are filled with so much blood. You won't build it, but your son Solomon will build a house for me." But what David did was David provided the raw materials for the building of the house. The fact that you're unable to build the temple, the fact that you're unable to accomplish certain things doesn't mean you cannot provide the raw material for the next generation. And so that it is important for us to be aligned with God in terms of seasons of our lives. And so we see here that although Naomi was not aware of the plan and the purpose that God had in store for her back in Bethlehem in Judah, but we'll begin to see the alignment here. So that Naomi came back with Ruth, who was a Moabite, that she followed her mother-in-law and said, "See, your people will be my people, your God will be my God. I've left my people behind, I've left my God behind, because if I go back to them, I can't serve the God of Israel while living with my own people in a probably a household of idolatry. And so I need to remove myself from my household, from my people, and follow you and follow your God." And that was how she secured a blessing. That was how she secured her inheritance in God. And so the Naomi had a kinsman, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And at this particular point, we don't really know much. The Bible has not told us much about this man, except that he's in the family of Naomi's husband and is wealthy. He has money. And verse 2 says, "And Ruth the Moabite said unto Naomi, Let me go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter." One of the key things to note in terms of when it comes to restoration, especially I mentioned this, I believe in the last video, that when it comes to favor, when it comes to restoration, it's not just left to God. There are parts you and I need to play. One thing we see with Ruth is a person that was diligent. She did not just sit down to do nothing. Ruth told her mother-in-law, say, "Yes, now we're back. We are in Bethlehem. We are in Judah. We are now in this country. Yes, I'm a foreigner in this country, but this is your country. These are your people. We're back now. You're old. You're my mother-in-law. Well, you sit while I will go. I will leave my comfort zone. I won't just be sleeping every day and sobbing and crying and mourning over the loss of my father-in-law, over the loss of my husband, all the, crying about, the fact that I miss my own people." No, we need to feed. We need to eat. I need to be able to provide for you at this particular age that you're in. That Ruth did not sit down. She was hardworking. She was a diligent person that wanted to provide for her mother-in-law. She wanted to be able to provide, and so she was a diligent person. The question is, how diligent are you? Because this is one of the things God eventually used in bringing her and bringing alignment to her to find the Boaz that she needed, to find eventually that husband that will bring about redemption to her life, that she will be delivered from widowhood and now to become somebody's husband, not just anybody's husband, but someone great in life that God will use to take away her shame and wipe away her past and her sorrow, that she decided to God. She didn't just sit in and say, "Well, what would be? Let's see, what God would do. God, I'm praying, for that favor to come." But the question is, what are you doing? The favor won't come and find you in the house. You're waiting on God to do certain things? It might be in terms of a job. Are you applying for the job, for jobs? Are you diligent? You're trusting God for business. Are you making research and finding out ways business actually operate in the land where you're in? Have you done your market research? Are you reading books to help you sharpen your mind on the business and the economy of that particular place? What are the things you're doing? You're trusting God for a spouse, but if you're just sitting at home doing nothing, how will you connect with a potential person God will bring into your life? Because God will not send someone to come and knock at the door of your house and say, well, I'm the one. I finally come. No, it doesn't work that way. So we need to understand that we must be diligent in the things we do. You want to pass an exam, to be excellent in a particular course, you need to study really hard, probably spend more time than other people in the library, studying to show yourself approved. This is crucial. That one of the things we see with Ruth was that Ruth was diligent. How diligent are you? Because we see that being diligent is important in the journey of restoration. For any person, you need to be able to come out of your comfort zone. Ruth was in a new country. She didn't know anyone there except her mother-in-law. And so she told her mother-in-law, let me go out. And if God gives me grace, if I find grace and favor before any person, anyone that owns a land, then they will allow me to actually glean from the land. And what is really gleaning? Gleaning is not someone going out during harvest to get crops. No, usually what happens during harvest is that a person that owns probably a vineyard or a farmland will hire harvesters. Harvesters, these are laborers that are skilled in harvesting different crops. And so it might be grain, it might be rice, it might be yam, it might be whatever it might be. That these people are skilled in harvesting. And so what usually happens is when those harvesters go out and they begin to harvest, there are times when maybe few of those maybe crops might be left behind. And that is what those that actually glean, they are able to take. And so if you meet someone generous, the person on their farmland, the owner, can say, well, yeah, why not? I mean, the harvesters are definitely gonna harvest a lot of things, and so whatever small remnants that remains, you can definitely take them for free. As long as you find any. But some might not be that generous. Some owners might say, no, I don't want anyone gleaning on this land. Like the harvesters must get everything, scrap the whole farmland, and nothing must remain. I'm not giving anything away to any person. Hence the reason why, Ruth said, let me go if I find favor before anyone, because she was not an employer. She was not an employee. Someone gleaning is not employed, is not being paid for what they're doing. They're just going there to find, if they're able to find anything that is worthwhile, anything that is probably good, that they can take back home. And so we see that Ruth did not have a job, but she was willing to go find resources. She was willing to go get, food to eat. It was important for her and her mother-in-law as well. Because by the time they got there, she didn't tell her mother-in-law, well, maybe you have some wealthy uncles or, family members. Let them be providing for us. Yeah, let us just sit down together. No, she said no. Naomi, my mother-in-law, because you're old, you can sit, but I will go do the work. And she told Naomi, and Naomi said, yes, Ruth, you can go. And this shows you of how diligent Ruth was. She was willing to go and find resources. She was not just sitting, she was not sleeping all day and all night just thinking about the losses that are taking place in her life. She decided that no, enough is enough. I've come to a new country. This is a new beginning. I need to do something about it. She might have not had all the skills in the world, but but one thing she knew was that she had strength, she had energy, and she said, well, let me go and glean. If this is the least I can do. She didn't say, she never said that, oh yeah, this thing is below me. I can't do it. I need a CEO kind of like job, or I need to be at least a top manager. She was like, I don't care. I need to start somewhere. And for someone, it might be you need to start somewhere. There are times when we envisage, we have this picture perfect, in our mind, that when we come into a new season, yeah, you're just gonna go to the palace straight up. That did not happen for Joseph, even in Bible. He had a dream of the greatness of God in his life, but he might have thought that maybe one day Pharaoh will call for me from my father's house and they'll bring chariot and bring me to the palace and I'll become the prime minister. But that was not what happened. How did he get to Egypt? He went to Egypt as a slave. He was sold into slavery. And as a slave, he began to grow. And eventually, from being a slave, he became a prisoner in Pharaoh's prison. And from there, God made him a prime minister. So that even Joseph, he learned so much. And he didn't say, this Potiphar's house is too, this below me. He got the job done. And because he was diligent and he obeyed God, he trusted God, he did every work. Even while he was in prison, the Bible recorded that the administrator of the prison put everything in charge of Joseph. Joseph, be running this prison. I mean, the only thing you can do is to come out and go. But, in terms of running everything, be there, take care of these people. I put everything in your charge. That means Joseph was trusted. And the same thing with Naomi. Don't be afraid to start from scratch. Don't be afraid to take that step of faith and get certain things done. Yes, you have your focus on where the end goal is, but you need to start from somewhere. And don't allow your ego to stop you from accomplishing that which God wants to accomplish in your life. So you might say to yourself, oh, but I don't have all the skills. Well, go get the skills. Start with where you are and work your way up to the top. You never know how God will come through for you. Spread your bread upon the waters for, after many days, you will have bountiful harvest. And so this is the story of Ruth, that she was not afraid to go out, to even get to do menial jobs she needed to survive, and her mother-in-law. But God eventually will come through for her even through these means. And so that she asked, and part of her desire is that God grant me favor, because what I'm about to do, it requires a lot of favor. Like I said, she was not an employee. She was not getting paid for it. It would take favor for someone to allow you to just come on their farmland and glean from it. That means being a gleaner is less than being a laborer. That is the status. Our status was not a laborer. As a laborer, you're getting paid for it. But as someone that is gleaning, you're not getting paid for it. Is whatever, percentage, whatever you're able to find on the field. And so if the harvesters do their job very well, you might end up not finding anything on that field. But if maybe they might probably skip one or two, then you're able to find just a little bit and then take home. And day after day, you begin to do that. And remember, that is only available during the harvest season. Because once harvest season is over, there's nothing you can glean from any farmland. So God brought her and Naomi at a perfect time. And then verse 3 begins by saying, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her harp was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. At this particular point, Bible begins to tell us that somehow God directed her path to the field of Boaz, the relative of Elimelech, the relative of her, father-in-law who was already late. And so God began to align things together for her. But the prayer has been prayed ahead, and God had been leading them in the way to go. This is the journey to restoration. And in the first podcast that I did, we spoke about how God was leading Naomi, even though she did not see it, she did not understand it, because when she had the good news, she decided, okay, now it's time for us. Although I don't know what is ahead of me, what lies ahead of me, but I will go back to Israel. And she went back with Ruth. And verse 4, the Bible says, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said unto the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. Then Boaz said unto his servant that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant said, And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, "It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab." And one of the things that the Lord did was to bring Boaz, being the owner, he came at the right time. And when he came, there were definitely, obviously, probably a lot of laborers and also maybe people gleaning in that particular land. But his eyes went to Ruth and said, "Who is this damsel? Who is this fine looking, beautiful, amazing young lady on this field?" And he has the laborers, and they said, "Well, from what we know about her, she's not from around there. She's not an Hebrew. She's not Jewish. She is a Moabite woman that came with Naomi to this land." That is what we know about her. And so that because God began to align things together for Naomi, for Ruth, and also Boaz as well, that Boaz became curious and began to ask, "Who is this damsel? Who is this lady that has come to glean on this particular land?" Right? Maybe there weren't many people of our age or of maybe our status that actually come to glean in the land. Who's this hardworking lady that is putting in so much effort into gleaning, into providing for herself, not relying on maybe the government, not relying on maybe other people, but just fending for herself. And that begs the question, and he asked the question, and his people told him about her. Because Boaz did not know much, but the people around her that have worked with her, they already knew about her. What will be said about you, and eventually we will see more here, that they began to provide more details and information about Ruth to Boaz, who did not really know much about her. And that when people, your helper of destiny eventually finds you one day. If that person is to ask for reference from your co-workers, is to ask for reference from your family members, if someone that is meant to help you comes along the way, what will be said about you? Will it be good things or negative things? Because see, no matter how much favor God might put upon your life, if the relationships around you, if your character is so flawed, your helper of destiny might decide not to help you. And so it is important, as we're praying, "God, grant me favor." It is important for you, one, to be led by God. We could see that Ruth was led by God. She said, "I will go out and glean. I will be diligent. Although I've prayed for favor, I will be diligent. God, lead me into the right place so that, I will glean in the right field." And why was she going to glean? She was not going there to actually look for a husband. She was going because she wanted to provide for herself and her mother-in-law. She cared so much about her mother-in-law. She cared about her so much. Hence the reason why she decided to take that step. And the servants, verse 6, and the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, "This is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house." Verse 8, then said Boaz unto Ruth, "Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from thence, but abide here fast by thy maidens. Let thy eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they should not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn." And that this was he had conversation with Ruth and began to tell her that, yes, you've come here today, you found favor, and I don't want you to go to another field. Every day do come to this field, and I've charged the young men here, nobody should do you any harm, no one should abuse you, speak negatively to you. You are welcome to come and glean after the harvesters, and wherever you get, it is your own keep. And also, if you're thirsty, the people have prepared water somewhere where you can actually go drink of the water as well. Usually the food and the meal, the water that will be provided will mostly be for the harvesters, people getting paid to actually get the job done. But he said, no, come and partake, come and drink of something that normally does not you don't have access to, because you are just gleaning. You are you're not doing us any benefit, because as someone gleaning, you're not really doing the owner of the farm any benefit. You're actually taking from them. And so Boaz was a generous person. He said, now come, also drink as well. If you're thirsty, there's water over there, you can drink out of it. Take shelter, rest, do all that you need to do. And this is the favor, what favor can do in the life of a person. That when God grants you favor, things you normally don't have access to, God begins to grant you access on to those things, to be able to partake of those things. This is what it means to come in contact with favor with God and also with men as well, because the favor of God rested upon her life, and also God gave her favor before Boaz. Boaz was meeting her for the first time. He didn't know her from Adam. Yes, he heard about her, that she was Naomi's daughter-in-law, and that was all he knew about her. But there were also other positive things that were said, and so he approached Ruth and told her, said, keep coming to this particular place. That means you won't be sent away at any point. Throughout this harvest, I want you to be coming here. There'll be food for you, there'll be rest for you, there'll be water for you to drink, and I've commanded everyone to be nice to you. Favor. That is what God does. Bible then says in verse 10, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thy sight, that thou should take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? And her reaction here was not that of pride. She didn't say, well, are you looking down on me? Like, is that why you're trying to do all of this? No. She didn't go into analysis paralysis. She bowed herself down. She was so humble and said, why have you been so gracious to me? Why have I found favor before you? You don't know me, so why are you helping out? Like, I don't understand. Like, thank you so much. Basically, she was showing her appreciation to him. Said, I'm a stranger, you don't know me. I'm not from Judah. I'm not even an Israelite. Like, we're not related. You don't really know me. I just came to your field, to your working place, to your company, to your organization, and you decided to invest so much in me. Like, this is only the hand of God. And so she bowed down. She showed honor. She showed honor. It's important to give honor unto whom honor is due. Yes, even though God sends people, no one can receive anything good except it comes from God. And even when God sends people to your life, yes, we know that all blessing comes from God. It flows through men to men. But it's important to honor the vessels that God used to bring those blessings into your life. Don't just say, well, yeah, it came from God, I don't need to thank nobody. No, you need to show your appreciation to God and also the vessels that God is using as well. Never take relationships for granted. Never take people God has placed in your life that are helping you for granted. Many are going out of their ways to do you good. It's not just about finances. It might be in terms of prayer, in terms of counsel, in terms of just being there for you whenever you need them. Never take people for granted. And so his response, verse 11 then says, and Boaz answered and said unto her, it has fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thy husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and hast come unto a people which thou knowest not. Therefore the Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. That Boaz now began to tell her more, because she did ask a question. Why have you shown me so much kindness, saying that I'm a foreigner? You don't really know much about me. I'm not your daughter. I'm not your sister. I'm not your cousin. Like, we're not related. You don't have any obligation to help me. Why have you done this? Help me to understand. And he said, have been fully told about how diligent, how full of love and care you are towards your mother-in-law, even though your husband is dead and that was the main thing that brought you and your mother-in-law together. But I've heard that you still continue to show kindness to your mother-in-law. The question is, when people have nothing to offer you anymore, will you still be kind to them? When people have, when nothing ties you together with people anymore, will you still show love? Will you still care about them? Or will you just burn all the bridges and, cause a lot of mess, in people's lives? And this usually happens sometimes in the work environment, when a person has been in work environment and then probably they decide to leave that work environment. On their last day, at times some people write some nasty emails or messages to different colleagues and begin to ruin different things, and you begin to see bridges burned, people feeling betrayed, and all manner of things. At times you see people who were maybe were once friends at one particular point, with different betrayers here and there. What do you do when people have nothing? When nothing ties you together with a particular person anymore? Maybe you are once housemate with a person and you are being nice and all. What happens when you're no longer housemates with a person? Do you start now, speaking and gossiping about them? That, oh yeah, they're nasty, they're this, they're that, and that, and that. Or how do you treat people? This is crucial in life. And that he began to tell her that I've heard. And one of the reasons why, is not because I'm being moved by emotions, but yes, God has put it on my heart to favor you, but I've heard of your good track record, that you've shown kindness to your mother-in-law. And so because you've been merciful, I'll be merciful unto you. In the Beatitudes, Jesus began to talk about, those that are merciful, they will obtain mercy as well. These are the peacemakers, those are the poor in the spirit. And he began to then tell her that, see, this is, God recompensating you, God rewarding you for the good things you have done for people. See, here's the thing in life: when you do good things unto people, God will pay you back with good things. And if you do wicked and evil things for people, I'm telling you, unless the mercy of God comes in, you also reap evil reward. And so you have to be careful of the seeds you sow in life. That for Ruth, she sowed seed of kindness and she eventually reaped that kindness. And so when Boaz came and said, say, this all kindness you're receiving from me is not just because, you are Ruth. It's not, it's because I've heard of how diligent, I've seen how diligent you are in working here. And I've also heard about how good you've been to your mother-in-law, that you're a good person. And he began to tell her, so that when it comes to receiving help and restoration from God and favor, what will be said about you? I've mentioned that before. When people get to give your helper of destiny information about you, right? It can be you apply for a job and then you need to get certain references, or people begin to make investigation and do background check and ask for how you were in your last place of work or other places you worked. What will their references be? Will it be good or will it be bad? In terms of moving to a new place, sometimes even some landlords, I've seen cases where landlords wanted to get reference from someone's past landlord to hear about their state of living, and if they were good or not. I've firsthand I've seen that happen. And the landlord, for this particular person provided good reference for the person. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So, for this new landlord, it was not just about doing your credit check to see that you're credit worthy and you can pay, but they wanted to know, how you were in your former place, where that person lived. And also in terms of relationship as well, at times a lot of people are praying to God, I must get married, grant me favor, let me meet the one, or wherever that might be, the right person. And but then, do you have, I know you're praying, but do you have good character? How's your relationship? Your past relationships? Not just that, the relationships you have with people, your family members, your friends. Are you a generous person? Are you a kind person? Or you're so selfish and self-centered and everything just evolves around you? That we could see for Ruth, she was not a self-centered person. She was kind because she was willing to go out of her way to just keep providing for her mother-in-law. She didn't say, well, your son who's meant to be providing for you is dead, so I have no obligation to actually provide for you. You go find your own way. I'll go find mine now. She was kind enough to her mother-in-law. And Boaz did mention that. I've heard about how kind you were. And, this is God repaying you for the good things that you have done. The Bible then says in verse 13, then she said, let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for thou art comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thy handmaid, though I be not like unto one of these handmaids. And Boaz said unto her, at mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached a parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. So that she spoke to him and said, let me keep finding this favor before you, because I'm not like one of these handmaids. There are many, other women, there are many other servants that were there, most of which I believe would have been maybe harvesters themselves, or people that are getting paid with greater status than Ruth. And Ruth said, see, in terms of my status, I know, one, I'm a foreigner. Two, I'm just gleaning. Like, my qualification is way lower than these other people. But you still decided to show me kindness. Like, let me continue to find this kindness before you. And Naomi then said, yeah. And Boaz said, during mealtime come, sit with them, eat, receive the same benefit, receive the same reward that my workers and, these other women will receive. As if you're working, with me, as if you're working for me. You won't be treated differently just because you're a gleaner, just because of your status in on this particular field or in this particular land. You won't be treated as a foreigner. You will be treated like one of our own. You'll be treated like any of these, women as well. And that is when favor comes into your life, that you won't be treated as an outcast. You will be given so much attention and resources by God. God will cause men to favor you. And I pray for you that God will, in this season, it will bring men and women to favor you and show you so much kindness in the name of Jesus. And so that he told her, come and eat, partake, eat with us. And there's no difference between you and those that are actually working, that getting paid on my field, because now you also partake of the food that we eat, and also the wine, you drink the wine as well, and the water, partake of everything, and you still get, your whatever you glean, you still keep it at the end of the day. And so she was getting a meal at work, even though she was not an employee in that organization. And so the Bible says, and she left. Then verse 15, and when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not, and let some also fall of the handful of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until eve, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And so basically, Boaz did something really key here. This man being generous, that he told his servant, he knew how skilled these people are, because like I said, when harvesters go to the field, they harvest, and if they're really good at their work, you will see less than nothing left of the harvest left on the field. And so that means a lot of times those that go to glean might not really find much, might be just 1-2 things here. And so that Boaz then went, in terms of showing kindness, he now went to his servant and said, well, Let her glean from, among the sheep. Don't rebuke her. Also, be purposeful in leaving out some things on the ground for her to actually glean, for her to receive. Um, because Boaz didn't just want to go and grab certain thing and say, "Oh, Ruth, take." She might feel like you just giving her like that. You taking pity on her. So he said, "Okay, she's working and she's putting in the work, but I want her to have a lot of result. So that means leave certain things behind for her. And so as she's gleaning, she will find more and more. And yes, she's putting in the work, but she will receive more benefit. So like this is not hand me down sort of result where he's just taking and say, oh yeah, don't do any work, just sit by yourself. No, she was still working. That is part of favor as well. And this is God as well, because at times as you're doing your work and you begin working and you begin to see that the result you're getting is actually way is way more than the input you are putting. That means there is favor upon your life, upon that thing, that aspect of your life. But God, I'm not really doing much or the amount of work I'm doing I shouldn't be getting this amount of result. I shouldn't be getting this amount of maybe finances, this visibility. And God is saying, yes, you're doing it, but this is my hand. I'm purposefully, leaving out blessings for you to find along the way. And this is the end of the Lord. But one important thing was that Ruth was still diligent. She didn't just sit during the break and after the break say, well, I'm done for today. I'm just gonna seal and chill out here. No, she continued working. She was diligent. And because he saw how diligent she was, he knew that she will continue to glean. And with that, he told his servant, he said, leave blessing for her along the way. And so that when you begin to do the things of God, you are being led by God. God also position blessings along your way that you begin to find. You, as you are gleaning, you are moving, you begin to find blessings. So he commands his angel and say, okay, put this blessing over there. Put that blessing over there. Put that blessing over there. And a lot of time we're crying out to God and saying, God, but I need these blessings. Where will they come? You sit in your house, but God is saying that blessing is outside. Go and do that thing I've asked you to do. For there's a blessing along the way that I've commanded my angels to put the blessings there. But a lot of times we're unaware of this and we're just sitting and crying on to God and say, God, let these blessings come. The blessing won't come like manna from heaven to drop on your feet. That you have to secure the blessing. That's why the Bible says that come before the throne of grace that you might obtain mercy and then find grace for help in time of need. That Ruth began to find the grains because they were left there. So it wasn't that these servants didn't know how to do their job well. In fact, if it would look like these servants didn't know how to do their job well. But it was the master that told them that leave the blessings behind, leave certain things behind so that this person will benefit from it. And so that in all of this, Boaz was as a business person, this didn't make sense in a business wise because he will be making certain losses by giving away certain things. But he said, no, this is a good thing to do. And he did it with a pure heart. And so the Bible then told us how much she got. And verse 18 says, and she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, where art thou gleaned today, and where roarest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought and said, the man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. So she came home, she brought everything to her mother-in-law. She didn't hide anything. She brought the whole thing. She got the whole barley, 1 ephod of barley, and she brought it to her mother-in-law. And by the time she brought it to her mother-in-law saw it and said, this came from gleaning? Yeah, she said, yeah. And the mother-in-law knew that, see, this amount you brought is too much for someone that is gleaning. Definitely the mother-in-law knew that, okay, well, it's not like, she knew Ruth. That, oh, yes, she didn't go to sell her body or to do something to get this. She actually went and gleaned. And that the conclusion the mother-in-law said is, this is a lot of favor. This is a lot of favor. Where did you go, Glenn? Because and blessed be the man that took knowledge of you. Blessed, this can only happen if someone showed you favor. Because with your skill set, with the gleaning that you've gone to make, you shouldn't bring home this much money. With the job you have, you shouldn't have this much resources. With the kind of job you have, you shouldn't be able to buy, that house. With the sort of job pay you get, you shouldn't, or what your business brings in, you shouldn't be able to buy that car. You shouldn't be able to afford that vacation. So that what is now bringing all of those things into your life is because there's the favor of God upon your life. A lot of times we don't recognize this. We don't pay attention to the output that we get from God, because sometimes we put little effort, small skills set, nothing much, but God begins to show you, okay, do it this way, do it that way. A lot of people are not doing it, and then you do it that way, and then resources begin to find you left and right, and you begin to check, okay, I get paid this amount of money from my paycheck, but actually the amount I'm spending and I have in my bank account is more than my paycheck. So where are all these blessings coming from? That God begins to maybe at times send people to you to sow into your life. It might be through a passive business that God gives you that you do, and then resources begin to come in through the business. And you begin to say, okay, well, the amount I have in my bank account is more than how much I'm even, earning from my day-to-day job. That is the favor of God in your life and my life as well. And so that Naomi was a woman that was discerning enough to recognize that this sort of blessing is not ordinary. This sort of blessing is supernatural, because that means there's a favor that came upon you. And so she began to ask questions. Where did you go? Which land did you go to glean? And which man took knowledge of you? I pray for you that may God cause men and women to take knowledge of you in the name of Jesus. And that knowledge is not pity. Like we see, that Boaz was not pitying Ruth. And that's one of the things you have to understand in life, because sometimes some of us, we sabotage the blessing or the help of destiny God brings into our lives, because you're thinking that these people are looking down on you and pitying you. But the truth of the matter is, for some of these people, they are not looking down on you or trying to pity you. They've been sent by God because you've done good unto others, and God wants to repay you with goodness. And so if you look at everyone that wants to help you as, oh, this person is just looking down on me, this person is just pitying me, you will miss out on your Boaz that God has sent into your life, because Boaz was not looking down on Ruth. He has heard about he saw how diligent she was. He has heard about how she had stuck with her mother-in-law, helped her mother-in-law, and he said, I will also show you kindness because you've done good thing. And so that when the mother-in-law asked, she said, this kind of blessing is not ordinary. This kind of blessing is supernatural. Where did you go, Glenn? And which man? God bless the man that took a knowledge of you. Because that is the only explanation of this. And when he asked her, Naomi then said, Ruth then said, oh, I went to a field. This man's name is Boaz. That's his name. I don't know him, but he was a kind man, and I got this much from him. And the Bible says that Naomi said unto her, verse 20, and Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who has not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our next king's men. And Naomi, when Ruth told her his name is Boaz, she then remembered, said, oh, Boaz is actually one of our next of kin, is related to, my husband that is late. Oh, see how God is working. That this is God, that means God is still showing kindness to both the living and the dead. God has shown kindness. God had not forgotten my family. He had not forgotten me. I thought I no longer have any person because, Ruth, Naomi probably saying, I thought I no longer have any person because my husband is dead. My two sons are dead. I thought there's no one else for me. But God has made it so that after coming back to this land, a relative of my husband is now showing kindness to you, who is my daughter-in-law, and also to me as well. That means God still sees me in the midst of all my troubles and my losses. I've suffered many losses in life, but God is still showing kindness to me. And blessed be the God who has not left me, who has shown kindness to both the living and the dead. And so she began to tell Ruth that, oh, now I'm seeing the connection here. God is doing something because this person is a next of kin to us. That means there are certain responsibilities that now falls on him. And unknowingly, without knowing that, he began to show kindness. And this can only be the finger of God. The Bible then says that verse 21, and Ruth the Moabite said, he said unto me also, thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all the harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, our daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwells with her mother-in-law. And so she told her mother-in-law that this man Boaz said, I should not go to any other person's field. I should continue to come to his field and to glean among, the women that are there. And she told her mother-in-law. And because her mother-in-law, it was someone who had experience when she was an Israelite, a Hebrew. This is her land. She understood the system more than Ruth. She had more experience, more knowledge than Ruth. And she knowing Naomi, she knowing Boaz, Ruth did not just rely on herself, she sought for counsel. She sought for help from someone that was more experienced than her. I said, here is what this person suggested to me. What do you think? And Naomi said, it is a good thing. Do as he said. Keep going to his farmland and harvest during this harvest season. The Bible recorded that during the harvest season, both harvest of barley and harvest of wheat, throughout that, Ruth kept going to glean from that land. And as she kept going, she got first class treatment, even though she was not an employee, like I said, but she was receiving benefit just like someone working maybe 9 to 5. So that means she had access to all the perks of being a full-time employee. Say for instance, back then I'm sure, but in our days, talking about some sort of like salary, some sort of like health insurance, different insurance packages. But she was not an employee, but she was getting access to all of them. During lunch, she will be provided with lunch as well, with wine, with water, with rest. She was not put aside and said, well, you're not one of us, right? She was now one of them, working as if she was one of them. But the other people were working so that they can get paid at the end of the day. But for her, it was not getting paid. Her own payment was gleaning and taking the wheat and the barley she received from the farmland. She sought counsel from Naomi, someone who was more experienced than her, and she gave her, counsel and said, yes, she validated, she confirmed what Boaz said and said, this is a good thing. In your life, it's important to be able to seek the right counsel from the right people. You can't figure everything out by yourself. It's good that you don't walk alone by yourself. That is why it's important. At times they say two heads are better than one, but it's more about two good heads are better than one. It's important to be able to seek counsel. In the midst of good counsel, there's safety. The important thing is good counsel, because there are some counsels they are not good. And so just because you surround yourself with a lot of people that gives different counsel doesn't mean that every counsel that is given is good. But you must have been able to validate and verify certain people that when these people give counsel, the Bible said concerning Ahithophel, that And David understood that, and also his son Absalom. They said when Ahithophel give a counsel, it is like someone that sought the Lord for the counsel. That was how good Ahithophel's counsel was. And that was why David understood the implication of it when Ahithophel was now, with Absalom his son, after Absalom dethroned David, and David had to pray to God, say, God, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness, because I know how dangerous Ahithophel's counsel was, because Ahithophel provided counsel to David as well. And so he said, God, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness. And that was how God turned Ahithophel's counsel to foolishness. And that led to Absalom being defeated. Else, David would have died. Absalom would have wiped David off. And so, which counsel are you receiving? Are you able to receive counsel from people? Because a lot of times, sometimes, especially, young people want to keep things to themselves. But Ruth did not do that. In this particular thing, she decided to seek counsel. She didn't say, yeah, I'm going to figure it out myself. I'm the one working this, Naomi doesn't have this much experience. She's old. Yeah, she can't really, understand what I'm going through. And so I'm a foreigner. She's not going to understand, everything. But she went to her mother-in-law and said, this was what this Boaz man said, who's your relative, so what do you think? And Naomi said, yeah, it's a good thing, it's a good counsel. Do go continually, because now you've experienced favor, and that means throughout every day you go, there will still be more and more favor that you receive, even as you glean from his farmland. And she received that. And so we spoke about that when it comes to restoration, the journey of restoration, one of the key things is that favor we receive from God, and also in terms of direction, being led, that God specifically, he made it so that Naomi, although she didn't know why she had the nudge to go back to Bethlehem, but the Bible recorded that she went in the book of Ruth chapter 1. At the end of Ruth chapter 1, that was when she went. And the Bible recorded that she went at the beginning of the barley harvest. And now we begin to see why she went at the beginning of the barley harvest. For her, it didn't make sense. But as she was prompted by God, led by God, even though she didn't know she was being led by God, she just decided to say, well, it's time for me to go back to Bethlehem. And she got there at the beginning of barley harvest. Why? Because God wanted to bring Ruth, not really Naomi. God wanted to bring Ruth to the farmland of Boaz, because it was meant to bring redemption to these people, to provide shelter for them. And that's why, Boaz said, God bless you, because you've come under the wings of God to receive shelter. You've left your own people, you've left your own God, you've come. And so in terms of restoration, we need favor from God, the prayer of favor. Lord, grant me favor as I'm going. Lead me. You apply for different jobs. God, grant me favor with an organization where it's not just going to be about the pay, but I'll have good colleagues, good work environment, good bosses, that will allow me to grow, and do things that will not frustrate your life, that will not kill your prayer life. It's important. And that Ruth was diligent. We mentioned that. We saw her diligence. She didn't just sit idle doing nothing. She said, I will go and, start working. Even though it's like mini a job, or yeah, it's not below me, I will go get it done. It's important not to just sit, idle doing nothing, or doing nothing much. Or if something is not working, ask God, what do you want me to do about it? Don't just sit down doing nothing. A lot of times as believers, it's laziness. We just say, oh yeah, I'm still waiting on God, for clarification. But as he told you, yeah, there are some cases he might tell you, just wait, do nothing. But if he's not doing that, get up on your feet and go do something. Be diligent in the things that God has asked you to do, because we could eventually see that she being diligent led her to the farmland of Boaz, who eventually showed kindness to her. And also character. Her character was good. Hence the reason why Boaz showed her kindness, because she asked, why are you showing kindness to a stranger? Because I'm a stranger, you don't know me. And he said, well, I've heard about you, and I've heard about the good things you've done to your mother-in-law. And so when people no longer have anything much to offer you, that Ruth did not see her mother-in-law as a burden. She saw her as a blessing, and she wanted to keep her in her life. What is your approach, towards that, to people? Do you care for people, or do you just discard them and say, you'll go, whatever is going on in your life is not my business. I'm gonna focus on mine. You go focus on your own. Nothing, brings us together, ties us together anymore. And after that, we see, that she found more favor, that Boaz allowed her to glean from his harvest, and told his servant and said, leave more for Ruth. And so she put in little effort but maximum output. He also gave her all the perks. With working on the field, even though she was not an employee, but she had access to drinking water, to eating with them, to resting. She had access to, drinking wine of the vineyard as well. And so she had all of this. But by the time she came back to her mother-in-law said, only this can be God. This must be favor, because no one gleaning in a day receives this much. And so, where did you go? And you know, blessed be the man who has shown you this much kindness. And after she told, our mother-in-law the name, he said, oh, now I see this man is actually a kinsman, a relative of ours, and God has shown kindness to both the living and also the dead, that God has not forgotten us as well. That hope was stirred up back in her. And then in the book of Ruth chapter 3, we begin to see the implication of these things that are taking place, that this has now allowed Naomi to see and say, oh, this man is actually meant to redeem us in this family. That means this man is actually, Boaz is meant to marry Ruth. And this is the redemption that we're looking for. Because in Ruth chapter 1, Naomi already told Ruth up her and said, there's no husband for you waiting for you in Bethlehem. If tomorrow I get married and give birth, will you have to wait for my son? Because our own thought is, there's nothing. There's no way out of this. But not knowing that there's a kinsman, someone, a relative that God had prepared. There's a Boaz for you in the future. There's a Boaz for you in one aspect of your life. Boaz doesn't, always have to be, someone you get married to. Boaz can be someone, a person that God, an helper of destiny God has sent into your life to help you in terms of mentorship, in terms of career, that will open doors for you that normally you won't be able to enter into maybe those organizations or have such influence. People God will put in your life to help you in life. It might be in terms of spiritually as well. It might be a spiritual father, it might be a mentor that will hold your hands and take you to places you are meant to be in life. And those are Boaz's. But then remember, Ruth had a good track record. Hence the reason why Boaz decided to show her kindness. It's not just about praying for favor, from God. What is your character? How does it look like? Are you good in terms of character? What will people say about you? People that really know you. Would they tell people, if you are being truthful, would they tell people that you're a good person, diligent person, or the recommendation is going to be, no, don't go near him, don't go near her. They're nasty people there. This person is lazy. They talk behind people's back. They have anger issues. They're always in bad mood. Don't hire such a person. What will people's recommendation be about you? Stay tuned for the journey towards restoration, episode 3 coming up, and then we'll dive into the book of Ruth chapter 3. I hope you've been blessed today. God bless you. Stay tuned. Bye.